How's it going, Yankee fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Nick Nielsen. And today we want to take a look at the shortstop position for this Yankee team. What happens next season when you have to make a decision with Isaiah Connor-Falefa? Do you keep him? Do you let him walk? Do you cut him? Like, what happens with him? Also, you look at, Oswald Peraza. There's a conversation there that maybe you want to flip him for the most value right now for pitching, or you keep him and, have him play shortstop until Anthony Volpe is ready. And you can kind of look in the future and say, Peraza and Volpe are good players who should be on this team. Or you could look at maybe the Yankees missing out on Aaron Judge and having all this money to spend and going and just grabbing one of those Trey Turners or Carlos Correas on a short-term deal worth a lot of money. They just pay them a lot over a year or so, let them walk after the season, and then you have Volpe ready and kind of use that as a stopgap scenario if you miss out on Judge. So, there's a couple different debates, a couple different kind of scenarios I want to look at, what our preferences specifically. But Nick, before we dive into this interesting topic here, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. I hope the Phillies don't lose the World Series at this point. No more Yankees baseball has me in a world of trouble. It's like, what is happening? Just so boring. But I love talking about the offseason, and I love immediately flipping to the next year. Like, that's what you got to do when you lose like that against the Astros in embarrassing fashion a week ago. You just got to be like, we got to focus on the future, figure out the problems, and figure out how we're going to solve them. So I don't know, man. I'm good. Still going to be hyped up about talking over the next couple months, like all the hot stove stuff as well, the winter meetings. We're gonna have arbitration talk. There's gonna be a lot of topics going on this offseason. So I don't know. I'm excited. If we don't re-sign Judge, what are you gonna do with that money? Like you said, you got to give it to someone. So I don't know if that'll be a shortstop. Maybe it'll be like Carlos Rodon. I don't know. Who knows? But I don't want the Yankees to do nothing because that's what I fear may happen.
Yeah, so then the nothing burger is definitely not one I want to eat. It's it's like having just the patty with no toppings on it. This is definitely a team that they can afford the condiments, they can afford the mustard and the ketchup, they can afford the lettuce and the tomatoes and the spicy mayo. If you want to go that direction. So this is definitely a team that has money to spend. And if you lose out on Judge, there's no excuse. There's no excuse to upgrade this team significantly. So I'll say this, right? By the way, do you think that there's a world where Verlander decides to opt out of his deal and go for more money?
I do, but at the same time, he's so old and he's been terrible this postseason, except for against the Yankees, of course, for whatever
He's a
reason.
Cy Young, though. We're looking at a guy that's probably going to win the Cy Young this year.
You can
He's
make
bounced
bank.
back.
You can make bank, but I don't know. I feel like he's got a pretty decent deal as is, and it's like maybe he'll just kind of continue to play through with Houston. Like, he does like playing for Houston, and for whatever reason, the Yankees we're barely even in on him. So if he's a free agent this time, I don't see it going any differently. Like, Hal doesn't for whatever reason to commit to elite players all that well, or all that heavily in balls to the wall. It's always yeah, we're good enough. We think this group can win. And it's why are we trying to think this group can win when we're the Yankees?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a really interesting kind of observation that Hal kind of tends to rely on is we think, and Cashman too. We think we can win with this team. We think these guys are good enough. We have all the talent to do it. But the reality is they just don't. They just don't want to spend more money, and they don't want to go after proven commodities sometimes. So I'll tell you this, or at least guys that are in their prime, going down and trying to grab Donaldson at the back end of his career to play an important position, an important role. It was a ballsy choice, and it ended up biting him in the butt. So
yeah, I couldn't have seen Donaldson being this bad. I don't think anyone could have seen Donaldson being this bad. His defense, for whatever reason, was better than it was in past years. I know he had elbow injury issues and some hip stuff and some oblique stuff, but his offense this year was atrocious. He was awful at the plate all year, and then the postseason it was even worse. So you couldn't have seen that coming, but at the same time, it's Hal and Cashman and all those guys, the whole front office chose to go down that route instead of getting a proven star shortstop in Carlos Correa, or going out there and getting someone else. There's 4 great shortstops in the market. Corey Seager was available. You could have played Marcus Semien as shortstop for all I care. But instead, you went for IKF and Donaldson. And now, both those guys, honestly, don't really have a meritable spot in the team. Donaldson should not be back next year. I'd be fine keeping IKF and moving him to third, honestly, because he's really good there. That's his natural position. Or just using him as a utility guy off the bench. Just as long as he's not constantly in the lineup every day and getting everyday ABs. The guy had, I think, 360 more plate appearances than Oswaldo Cabrera, but had a lower F WAR. That's a problem when that's your starting shortstop that you decided to go for and say we're not getting one of the big guys because we want to have him as a stopgap. And then I would love to see Peraza play shortstop next year. I feel you got to give the kid at least some a shot. He had 2 weeks worth of baseball. And it's like, what is this? This is what we're doing. And then you call him up for the ALCS and like play him one time. It's like, what are we doing, guys? I don't know. I think the shortstop position is a need, but I feel like third base is the bigger need right now. That's why I'm like, or unless we just move IK off over to third and then you figure out the shortstop from there. But I just don't want to see Donaldson back in pinstripes next year. Eat his money. He's owed like $24 million.
Yeah, so okay, so that kind of segues us into the first, I think, preferred argument, the preferred course of action for the Yankees. At some point, you just got to commit to the really great young talented players you have, like they did with Oswaldo Cabrera. Commit to these guys, give them the at bats. They're only going to get better, and they're so affordable. You can afford to go after Judge. You can afford to be more aggressive in other areas if you commit to some really talented players you already have on the roster that are barely have any service time. So, Oswaldo Cabrera, I don't even think he has any service time because they pulled him up after August 18th or whatever that was. So
yeah, we were waiting.
Nothing. We were waiting to bring him up. So I'll tell you this right now. My preference, personally, let's assume that Gleyber Torres stays and he's not traded. Let's assume that. I guess it could go either way, but my preference would be Peraza starts the season at shortstop. He has a plus glove. He's a plus contact hitter. He has plus speed. We saw what he did in the ALCS against Houston with some of those defensive quality plays. That wasn't a monster game, a huge moment for him where a lot of players would have been, maybe shook like IKF was in the ALDS, like just completely in their own head. And Peraza shows up and has a masterclass defensive performance. Yeah. And as a hitter, I don't expect him to be able to hit. I think, who was he facing? Was it Framber Valdez?
Yeah, it was Framber Valdez.
Right. And he shut down everybody. The Yankees, entire Yankees team.
He just mowed through the 7-8-9 that game. Like, it was like 7-8-9 was Higgy, Cabrera, Peraza, and it was just ugly.
Pathetic. And if Peraza has half a season worth of at-bats, we're not looking at the bottom half of that lineup and saying this is basically an automatic 1-2-3.
No, but instead their reluctance to call him up because the Yankees are always service time champions. It's what bit us in the ass again. And then the worst part about it was that since you waited so long to call up those guys, DJ LeMahieu getting hurt presented a much bigger issue because these guys didn't really have that many ABs and reps underneath their belt because you weren't playing them because you didn't call them up. So now in the biggest games of like this season, we saw like 9 different lineups, not 11. But like every game in the ALCS was a different lineup. And then you look at what Houston's done. They've not changed their lineup once. They changed like Trey Mancini and like Aledmys Diaz. Like, that's it. Or, like, behind the plate, they occasionally go from someone other than Maldonado. But, like, that's why those teams are so much better than we were this year down the stretch. We had, like, 4 different leadoff hitters in the ALCS. I'm like, what is happening? Just stick to something. Commit to an identity. Either go in or don't. I'm sick of this, like I said earlier, where it's like, oh, yeah, we think we can compete this year. We think we have enough of the talent and pieces to do it. It's like, guys, you're the Yankees. Look at what other elite teams are doing. The Dodgers are being linked heavily to Judge and just are saying, well, let Trey Turner walk, which is another option. I would love Trey Turner on the Yankees. Are you kidding me? And apparently some MLB executives have said that, or scouts have said that Trey Turner prefers to be on the East Coast. So I don't know. Maybe Trey Turner would like be ushered in if we lose Judge. And I'm fine with that because Trey Turner is an amazing player. But the biggest issue I have is like, if Judge walks, how are the Yankees going to sell tickets? Like, what? I love Stanton. I love Rizzo, Cole. All those guys are great. But they're like, in their ability to like be the identity in the face of the franchise, they're not anywhere near Aaron Judge's. Aaron Judge is the most popular player in baseball, other than maybe Shohei Ohtani. And now it's like, if you just let him leave, what does that say about you? That you're not committing to your franchise guy that you drafted, you believed in. You called up in 2016 because you're like, we got to get this kid some at-bats at some point. And now it's like, if you let him walk, you can sign the greatest shortstop in the world for all I care. But it's just going to still sting a little bit because it's like, damn, I watched Aaron Judge's entire career here. And now it's just like, bye. Like, I don't know. I just need the Yankees to be aggressive this offseason.
Agreed.
If they want to keep Peraza as shortstop, that'd be a great move. Call it Volpe like halfway through the season. Volpe should be given a shot to make the roster out of spring training.
Agreed. I agree. I think that he's almost ready. I think that he needs maybe 3 months worth of regular season, maybe 2 months. He was really looking good toward the end of the season for AAA too, the last couple of games. So he's almost ready, in my opinion. In reality, look, if the Yankees don't sign Aaron Judge, they gotta probably spend that money on another star player because you kind of have to, take that leap and you can't just let that money sit there. You gotta go in, you gotta try.
Absolutely.
And you gotta try and replace those numbers somehow. And, a superstar slugger, or rather shortstop, like a Trey Turner, like, a Carlos Correa could get you in that direction. I know a lot of people don't like Carlos Correa, but he's objectively a great player.
Yeah, he's a good player.
He's a good postseason player too. So, that's the big difference in my opinion is, postseason play is obviously going to be the more favorable thing and more attractive thing. And, at the end of the day, like, Yankees go on to win games. They need players that are experienced in that facet, and he is. But I'll say this: my preference is always to keep Judge, and if we do keep Judge, and
absolutely.
I think that the chances are still in our favor, I think that the best course of action is to go with Peraza at shortstop until Volpe is ready, and then once Volpe is ready, you move Peraza to the hot corner, and then you have Peraza at the hot corner, who I think has just good enough arm strength to handle it.
Yeah, he's got great range.
Great range, great athleticism. I think he'd be fine there. At the very least, he'd get better as the season goes on and, learn to play the position a little bit more efficiently. If not, if you don't go that direction, if they trade Gleyber Torres, you can move Peraza to second base and put DJ at third base.
So, I was going to say DJ plays third and second really well. And I don't mean this to be like harping on Rizzo because his back injuries haven't, like, obviously you don't want to have injuries, but having DJ on this roster, he's got to be healthy.
Huge.
Like, because if Rizzo has another couple of weeks of back spasms and he can't play, we can't have this again where it's like DJ's also injured. So we're teaching our 23-year-old rookie that played shortstop and second base to play first base. Like that just seems like poor management down the stretch. And now it's like, I feel like the Yankees have so many options. The only outlier for me on this group currently, like that I think you do not deserve to be here is Josh Donaldson. Like I can definitely see the reason behind keeping IKF. And IKF at third base, for whatever reason, is very good. And with runners in scoring position, I don't know why. He's got that dog in him, I guess. He was very good with runners in scoring position this year. So it's like I can see the value to keeping him, especially as a utility backup guy. But like you said, if we lose Judge, even if we get Judge, why not go get a big guy still for the middle infield or for third base even? I know Nolan Arenado just opted into his contract to remain at St. Louis. But for all I know, you could go out there and just find another third baseman or get a shortstop. Like I love Willy Adames from Milwaukee. And I feel like he's a guy that could potentially be on the market. He does kind of have that same, like, this is why we lost in the postseason type of approach at the plate where he is a swing and miss guy. But elite defense, good speed, crazy arm. It reminds me of Tulo when he whips it across the infield. I'm like, good Lord. And like he hits like 25 bombs. So I wouldn't mind like looking at something like that. You would have to probably give up one of our better prospects. But I don't want them to be stagnant. We cannot run into next season with this same group and like bring back Judge and say that was our big move, because that's the bare minimum. That's what's expected. The Lakers, could you imagine if they just let Kobe walk because he wanted too much money? You don't do that with franchise players. And he's not just a franchise player. He's like everyone's like favorite player on the team. Like everyone on the team loves Judge, and they've all said he is the captain of this team. Like Nestor said it, Trevi said it, and he's just a good dude. I don't know. I don't want the Yankees to like let Judge walk and then not get a shortstop or a third baseman, or not get another elite pitcher and just literally sign a bunch of 2-3 year deals where it's like, what is this? And then come back into the season with Josh Donaldson a third. It's like, that was not the right recipe.
Yeah, I agree. Look, the Donaldson's got to go. Hicks has got to go. That money's got to be cleared off the books. Ultimately, it's time to commit to some of our younger guys and invest that money in the stars that make this team what it is. And the infield has just been such a liability. I'd rather have Peraza over IKF there any day of the week, just given Peraza's a better slugger. He's a good contact hitter in addition to that. When he's getting comfortable, when he feels good, he's going to be very productive as an offensive weapon.
Yeah.
Defensively,
ceiling's so much higher than IKF's.
Yeah, and you want to know what I really like about Peraza that is better than IKF and really reminds me a lot of Jeter? He doesn't mess up the routine plays. He'll make every routine play. That's what made Jeter so great, not because of his flash, but because he did not mess up a routine ground ball. And like that is an asset, that, and it's something that we were actually realizing at this point, after seeing kind of IKF in this situation at shortstop for the last couple of years. So, am I saying Peraza is going to be Jeter? No, absolutely not. What I am saying is that he is going to be at the very least, he's going to be a very good defensive player for you that makes routine balls. And he also has the flash factor. He also has the big play factor. We saw what he did spinning around and throwing that ball to Rizzo, plucked out of the dirt. We saw what he did. His transition from glove to hand, some of the fastest I've seen from the Yankees shortstop.
He's got great sleight of hand.
And
he knows what he's doing. And like that's the thing. Like I'm all for committing to the young guys, but it's so hard for me to just like confidently be like, yeah, that's what they're gonna do because they didn't do it this year. And like this was like the most open. Like I felt like this was the year that they're really gonna commit, especially after the deadline where they held on reluctantly to Peraza, to Jason Dominguez, to Anthony Volpe, because they believe that those guys are the future of this team and that they're going to be playing in a big role in the team's success. And then you see that none of them get called up until like 2 months later. And it's like, well, good thing we saw 3 weeks of Oswald Peraza this year. I'm sure that was really helpful. Like, what are we doing, guys? And that's why it's like, I want him to start as shortstop, but I just don't know if they're going to do it. I feel like we're going to go into the season with IKF at shortstop, some random third baseman that we just found on the waivers that shouldn't be playing baseball. We're probably going to sign Evan Longoria. And then Glaber will be at second and Rizzo at first. That's the Yankees infield. Woo.
Right.
And Trevi behind the plate. We'll probably even sign Gary as the backup catcher just to really fuck around.
Oh God, that's not. I mean, Ben Rortfed, I imagine, gets pulled up into that role.
Hopefully,
but
I don't think Higgy's going back. I don't see why we'd pick his up. I think his arbitration is gonna be like $7 million. Like, why would we give that to Higgy?
I'd rather go Ben. He's good. He's a good defensive catcher. I mean, he has got some pop to his bat, but you know, again, the Yankees aren't really looking at catchers as an offensive weapon. I will say this though: I had an argument with somebody the other day at a party about the value of offensive catchers, and just a traditional thing to talk about at parties. But you know, now that I've gotten so involved in baseball analytics and stuff like that, it's like I can't stop myself. And I had a whole argument. Stuff, dude. Yeah, I had a whole argument with somebody who was like, you know, you look at Martin Maldonado on the Astros, terrible offensive player, but he's a great defensive catcher. And like, you know, the Astros are in the World Series. Yeah. And I'm like, but then as he was saying that, you want to know who hits the go-ahead home run for the Phillies? JT Realmuto. Yeah. And I'm like, not only that, he hit the double right before that and then drove in a couple runs. And I'm like, the difference sometimes is that catcher offense. It can be the difference in winning and losing games because normally that spot is just an out. Automatic.
That's how it was for us in the playoffs, dude. Trevi and Higgy were both, bad. And I love Trevi, but they were both awful. Automatic out every at bat. I think they got one hit combined in the entire series from the catcher position. And it's like, we can't be having that. But
bad.
Trevi's defense was laps above the entire field. So it's like, I guess you trade it off, but you're right, dude. If we could just somehow find like Will Smith, like 2.0 from the Dodgers and like have him as a catcher, I'd obviously love that. But maybe the Yankees just go all in for like Sean Murphy and trade away a couple prospects and they have Trevi as the backup. And I'd be fine with getting Sean Murphy because Sean Murphy's a great catcher and he's good on both sides of the plate. Better offensive catcher than Trevi, not as good defensively, but not to the point where it's like, oh, this is a big step down. It's like, oh, you're still a top 3, top 5 defensive catcher in baseball by like every metric. I don't know. The Yankees have a lot of decisions to make. And the biggest one comes with this guy right there in the bottom of our screen, Aaron Judge. Like, that's the other thing. I think it was our boy Ryan Garcia. He tweeted, he's like, the Yankees cannot just like not do anything this offseason and wait around for Judge. Because that's what they did last offseason and they didn't get a deal done. And then like we signed Rizzo. Yeah. And then we traded for JD and IKF. And it's like, what is that's our offseason? Oh God. And now it's like this time around, after that colossal disappointment and failure, you cannot just be stagnant. You got to make moves. And you can't sit around and wait for Judge to call the shots. Because if you do that, you're just going to be sitting here and every free agent's going to sign. And you're going to be like coming end of December, early January, like, well, we still don't have a contract with Judge. And fortunately or unfortunately, 4 of the best options in the market have already signed contracts. Like Brandon Nimmo, he's gonna demand the bag. Even the Rockies, God bless their souls, are interested in Brandon Nimmo, which doesn't make sense. But hey, whatever. Colorado, it's legal there, so it makes sense.
Yeah, we'll see, man. This is gonna be an interesting offseason. The Yankees have a lot to figure out. Even if they land Judge, I don't think they're gonna stop there. They have some things they got to do. They're getting rid of a lot of guys. You know, you're looking at 4 bullpen arms they're losing, and they don't have Scott Efros next year. And Michael King, who knows when he's going to return. So they need help there. You know, infield's a huge question marks across the infield. Maybe they're going to try and get rid of some of those, high price guys like Donaldson and Hicks. And if they do, they got to figure out Rizzo. Are they going to bring back Rizzo? They need to find a number 5 pitcher because, I mean, do you trust Herman? Maybe, but lose Jameson Tyone, pretty productive pitcher for the Yankees this year.
Innings eater, especially.
Innings eater, you got to replace him somehow. Like, there's a lot of weaknesses on this roster, and we just traded away Waldichuk and Wisniewski. So, you don't have these guys either.
And JP Sears.
So, you just offloaded a lot of guys who could have been contributors, and now you're left trying to pick up the pieces because you went supposedly all in and it all fell apart, whether that be due to injury or whatnot. But this is definitely a situation where the Yankees have a lot to do this offseason. Cashman also, he's another guy. His contract expired. Who knows? I imagine he'll be retained, but they haven't.
I think Hal's like, we like Cashman. It's like, what is this? Why? Why do we?
I don't get
He's
it.
the only GM in baseball that's been around since the 90s. What are we doing, guys? Do you not look around and see how everyone else basically, like, you have a winning season and you're still borderline canned for a lot of organizations now?
Yeah.
And for us, it's like, well, mediocrity is acceptable. Like, what are we doing?
I don't know. I do not know, my friend, but we'll find out soon. We'll definitely find out soon. But guys, I'd love your perspectives below. What is your preferred situation at shortstop? Whether it be Peraza, whether it be IKF, or maybe a big free agent if they don't get judged. Definitely curious to hear your thoughts, opinions, and narratives below. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.